I wasn't supposed to be home that night. The conference in Dallas was supposed to wrap on Saturday, but a freak thunderstorm rolled across Texas like it had a personal grudge. Flights were delayed left and right, and mine got canceled outright. They offered to rebook me for the next morning, but I hate being stuck in hotels with no purpose. I've never been one to sit still, especially when I know I could be somewhere else, getting things done. So I went old school. Got in line, asked about standby seats, and by some stroke of luck, I got the last spot on a late flight back home. The seat was wedged in the back next to the bathroom, but I didn't care. All I could think was, maybe I'll surprise Jenna. She'd probably be winding down her night, maybe curled up with that worn throw blanket, watching one of her true crime docs with the volume too low to catch half the dialogue. I got home just after 9:30. Quiet street. House looked normal from the outside. No signs of anything strange until I walked in. You ever get hit with that feeling that something's not quite right? Nothing you can name. Just, the air feels different. That was what I felt the second I stepped through the door. It was the little things. The living room was spotless. No shoes by the door. No wine glass on the end table, which she always left out. And the popcorn bowl wasn't there either. That bowl had become part of our weekly routine, even if she never admitted she burned it every single time. The TV was off. Lights dimmed. Nothing on the stove. The silence felt almost staged, like I had walked into a model home that looked like ours. I dropped my overnight bag at the edge of the couch and walked into the kitchen. That's when I saw it. A receipt. Sitting half-tucked under her phone on the counter. Not hidden, but not exactly out in the open either. Like it was left there in a rush, maybe thinking I'd be out of town another night. Vintaggio. I knew the name. Swanky downtown spot. White linen tablecloths. Violinist in the corner. We'd only been there twice, once for our anniversary and once for her birthday, both times on reservations she made a month in advance. 2 entrees. Filet mignon. Lobster risotto. And champagne. Champagne. I stared at the receipt like it had just slapped me in the face. We're not rich folks. We're comfortable, sure. I work in cybersecurity, and Jenna runs her own consulting firm, mostly marketing work. But Vintaggio wasn't the kind of place you drop in for dinner on a casual Tuesday, especially not with a bottle of champagne. We had rules about eating out, save it for special days. And this sure wasn't one. I stood there longer than I probably should have, just holding the receipt. Reading it again. Checking the timestamp. 7:42 p.m. The night I was supposed to be gone. About 10 minutes later, I heard the garage door opening. She walked in humming some tune I didn't recognize, heels clicking across the hardwood like it was any other evening. Her coat was draped across her arm, and her makeup looked fresher than it usually did after a long day. When she saw me, she stopped mid-step. "Oh, I didn't know you'd be back." "Flight got canceled," I said. "Caught standby." She blinked. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, that's a nice surprise." She walked over and leaned in for a kiss. It landed on my cheek. Quick. Businesslike. Like when she says goodbye before running errands. I didn't return it. I just raised the receipt between us. "Fancy dinner," I said, my voice even. "Celebrating something?" Her eyes flicked to the paper. She didn't look shocked. She didn't even hesitate. "Dinner with an important client. My boss insisted. Big account we're trying to land." The words came smooth, like she'd practiced them. I nodded slowly. "Your boss?" "Yeah," she said, too casually. "Wanted to take the client somewhere nice." "Your boss?" I repeated, like I was tasting the word. "The same one who breaks out in hives if someone cracks open a crab leg in the break room?" That got her. She blinked once, maybe twice, then shrugged with a smile that didn't belong on her face. "Well, he didn't order the seafood." I did. That smile, it was polished, but her eyes darted. Just for a second. I nodded again. "Hope it was worth it." She didn't answer. I walked past her to the bedroom, tossed my coat on the chair, and closed the door behind me. That was the night something broke. Not with yelling, not with slamming doors, but quietly, like a rope fraying just enough to know it won't hold anymore. That was the night I stopped being her husband and started being the investigator. I've always been a fixer. When something doesn't work, I don't panic. I figure out why. That's probably why cybersecurity came natural to me. It's a job built for people like me, quiet thinkers who like order. You follow the trails most folks never notice. You look where no one else thinks to look. That next morning, after Jenna fed me her story about a client dinner, I woke up early and just stared at the ceiling for a while. Something inside me had changed. I wasn't angry yet, Not the kind of mad that shouts or slams doors. It was a cold, measured stillness. I had a job to do now. I needed to know the truth. I didn't say anything to her when she left. Just gave her a nod over coffee, same as any other day. She smiled at me, called back, "Love you," and headed out in heels. I didn't respond. She didn't know that while she was in the shower, I had already unplugged her phone from the charger. I work corporate security, third-party contractor. Most of what I do involves risk audits, tracing data breaches, and helping big-name clients plug holes in their systems. I've built firewalls that hold up better than bank vaults. Getting into Jenna's phone? That was nothing. Less than a minute, and I had access to her cloud backups, location logs, synced accounts, and stored data. She thought she was careful, had her messages auto-deleting, used the hidden photo folder, thought she was clever, making voice calls on her work number instead of her cell. But none of that mattered. I didn't need her messages. I just needed her patterns. Every device leaves a trail. Every location ping, every login, every calendar sync. It all talks, even if you don't think it's saying anything. She'd been going to the same hotel on 9th and Carter. Not a big chain. A boutique place tucked between a smoothie cafe and an antique bookstore. Twice a week, like clockwork, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always during the hours she claimed were for client check-ins or team-building lunches. She used our joint credit card at a nearby gas station before heading there. Once. Just once. That was her mistake. The rest of the time, she used Apple Pay through her business account, and once through Venmo, labeled client meal. I found the receipts in her email she thought I couldn't see. I'd helped her set that account up 2 years ago. She never changed the recovery address. I still had access. Same room number, 315, 3 visits in a row. Sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes for 5. One time she even booked the room overnight, on a night I'd flown out to Atlanta. She told me she was staying late at a strategy conference. Gave me a long speech about how exhausting it was. I remembered the call, how tired her voice sounded, how I had told her to take a bubble bath and rest. I felt something twist inside me. I knew the name on the reservation wasn't hers, but it didn't take much cross-referencing to match it to a known alias I found on a dummy profile connected to her phone. It was some variation of her boss's name. First name shortened, last name slightly altered. And that's how I knew it wasn't just a client meeting. He was the one paying sometimes. I saw the Amex transaction tied to a reservation. I copied the confirmation code, took screenshots, labeled everything by date and time. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I just listened and watched. The next step was about protection. I opened a new checking account at a credit union 20 miles away, somewhere she'd never think to look. Transferred my entire paycheck there. Canceled the auto transfer to our shared account. She didn't even notice. The same day, I started separating the assets. I had copies of every tax return from the last 10 years, every bank statement, every credit card transaction. I knew exactly where the money was, and more importantly, I knew what was in my name and what wasn't. We had a small investment account we started together back when things were good. I moved my half out, liquidated what was legal to take, reclassified some shared subscriptions, changed all my login credentials, canceled anything she might have used without asking. 2 days after the hotel confirmation, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not the loud type who promises to crush the other person. Just a quiet, sharp woman named Carla who specialized in high-conflict separations and asset shielding. We went over everything. She gave me a roadmap. Build a clean paper trail. No surprises. Don't act emotional. Act prepared. I followed it to the letter. Within a week, the groundwork was done. Separate finances, clean accounts, asset protection in progress. I started backing up all the evidence, offline and encrypted. Jenna was still humming through her evenings, thinking I didn't know a thing. She'd smile when she got a text and angle her phone just slightly away from me. She didn't know I'd already seen it before she did. She didn't know I had the truth and that I planned to do something with it. Not just react. Respond. Jenna always called herself a strategist. That was the word she liked to use. Said she helped businesses position themselves for growth in a changing market. I used to smile when she said that. Thought it sounded impressive, even if I never quite understood what she actually did. She ran her own shop, a boutique consulting firm, just her and a couple part-timers. Worked out of our home office or whatever coffee shop had the best pastries that week. Most of her clients were local small businesses, interior designers, personal trainers, wellness brands. Her LinkedIn said she offered full-service brand alignment and digital expansion packages, whatever that meant. But the more I thought about that receipt from Vintaggio and the frequency of those hotel trips, the more I started wondering if her business was what it seemed. If her personal life was that well hidden, who's to say the professional side wasn't just as messy? I started digging. I wasn't going in blind. I had access to our shared files, including a few she kept on her firm's invoices and expense logs. I figured I'd just take a peek, get a sense of how the money moved. I didn't expect to find anything criminal, just maybe more signs that she was hiding things. But right away, things didn't add up. One thing jumped out at me. A line item labeled Q4 Market Research, Sundown Wellness, $4,300 billed over 3 weeks. No contract attached. No report. No client file. I tried Googling the business. Nothing. No address. No registration. Just a vague LinkedIn page with 0 connections. Then I noticed a pattern. There were several of these. Research expenses, strategy sessions, vendor evaluations, each billed to vague company names I couldn't track. The payments were always just under the $5,000 threshold that requires extra scrutiny from most banks. Clean-looking invoices, but they were templated. Too clean. Too repeatable. That's when I hired the PI. I had never used one before. Didn't even know where to start. I ended up asking a friend in law enforcement who owed me a favor from a previous job. He gave me a name, Ed Mason. Quiet guy. Former military. Said Ed was the type who wouldn't show up in a trench coat, but he'd find answers. Ed got to work fast. He started by trailing Jenna's meetings, especially the ones she claimed were with clients. Half the time, she wasn't even meeting anyone, just sitting in coffee shops, scrolling through her phone, or ducking into the same boutique hotel on 9th and Carter. But Ed didn't stop there. He dug into the corporate filings, checked tax records, and started running down the names of her vendors. What he found made my stomach churn. One of the biggest fake vendors, RKL Solutions, was a shell. No employees, no office, just a P.O. box. The bank account it tied to belonged to her boss. Different name, different entity, but the routing number led to a holding account linked to a separate business he managed. They weren't just having an affair. They were running money together. Jenna would create the invoice through her firm. Her boss would approve it through the client company they both had ties to. Then the payment would get processed and quietly rerouted to the shell company. From there, who knows where it went? Personal expenses, dinners, those hotel rooms. Classic small business fraud. And dumb. Sloppy too. They reused template invoices. Didn't bother to mask the metadata. Ed pulled up PDF files that still had revision histories tagged with Jenna's initials. They were practically signing their names on every file. He found one document labeled draft_alt vendor to docs, where they had been deciding what fake name to use for the next expense. Jenna had left a comment on it. Should we keep this under $5K again? It wasn't just 1 or 2 charges. It was a trail, months of activity. I started going back through our joint account history, comparing restaurant charges, gas station stops, ride shares. The pieces started clicking together. Half those times she said she was networking or attending workshops, she was billing expenses to the LLC, then collecting the payout behind the curtain. I sat at my desk one night, staring at the files. A PDF open on the left, an email from her on the right. One she'd sent just weeks earlier, asking if I could pick up groceries because her client lunch went long. The receipt said otherwise. Lobster risotto, filet mignon, champagne. They weren't wining and dining clients. They were wining and dining themselves on stolen funds. Every minute I looked deeper, the picture got clearer. This wasn't just betrayal of trust. This was fraud. And she thought no one would notice. But I did. They were creatures of habit. I'd been watching the pattern for 3 weeks. Every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. sharp, Jenna parked in the lot of the Marlowe Suites, a boutique hotel just off the business district. Not the kind of place that shows up in travel ads. Small. Discreet. No valet. No big lobby. Just a few floors and a reputation for privacy. Room 411. That's where she always went. Checked in under her firm's business rate. Sometimes under her name, sometimes his. She'd walk in carrying that oversized leather bag she claimed was for client files. Dressed too nicely for a work meeting, too casual for dinner. I knew the walk. A little slower than usual. Like she was savoring it. She stayed for 2 hours, sometimes more. Then she'd head home, and if I was around, she'd toss me a smile and say traffic was awful. Maybe ask what we had left in the fridge or if I wanted to order pizza. Like it was just another Thursday. But this Thursday wasn't going to be. I called the Marlowe the night before. Asked for room 410, the one right next door. Didn't even have to lie. Just gave my name, paid in full with a personal card, and asked for early check-in. The clerk barely grunted. That day, I got there early. Brought nothing but a duffel bag and a folder. Sat in that room, listening to the muffled quiet on the other side of the wall. It was quiet at first, just some shuffling. Then the door next door opened and closed. I heard heels clicking on tile. Then laughter. Soft at first, then louder. Familiar. Her laugh. I hadn't heard it like that in months. Not around me, anyway. That sound used to belong to quiet mornings on our porch, or when she'd catch me watching her dance around the kitchen. Now it belonged to someone else. Or at least, she gave it to someone else. I sat there, drinking burnt hotel coffee from a paper cup. Watched the clock. At 6:22, I picked up the phone and dialed the front desk. Room service, please. The voice on the other end was chipper, too chipper. What can we bring you, sir? Surprise me. And bring it to room 411. Extra napkins. A pause. I'm sorry, sir. You said 411? That's right. I hung up before they could ask questions. Then I stood up, walked to the door, and stepped into the hallway. There was no plan to make a scene. No shouting. No fists. Just something that needed to be done. I knocked once, then kicked the bottom of the door, hard enough to rattle the latch. I heard movement inside. Voices, hushed but panicked. Then the door opened. She was standing there in a white robe tied at the waist. Her hair was up, makeup still fresh. Her eyes locked on mine and froze. Behind her, he was shirtless, holding a glass of scotch in one hand like a man in a movie who thought he looked important. I didn't say a word. I pulled the folder from under my arm and handed it to her. Neatly sealed. Blue tab on the top. Divorce papers, I said. Thought you'd prefer hand delivery. She blinked. What? I held up a hand. Hoped the steak was worth it. Then I nodded toward the room. This one's on me. She opened her mouth, maybe to argue or cry or explain, I don't know. But I was already turning. But I didn't leave right away. I walked past her, slow, steady, and deliberate, and stopped in front of him. He didn't move. Just stood there, trying to look calm, but his fingers clenched the glass like he needed something to hold on to. I looked him in the eyes. Not a word. Just a stare that said everything I wasn't going to speak out loud. Then I moved, quick and sharp. He dropped, clutching his jaw. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small bundle of napkins. Hotel napkins, neatly folded. I tossed them at him. As I walked back to room 410, I heard a voice behind me hiss. Something smug, like he thought he was still in control. I didn't stop walking. Didn't even glance back. Once inside, I locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Then I picked up the room phone and called my lawyer. Carla, I said. It's done. Good, she said. How'd it go? I served her in person. At the hotel. With him there. Silence for a moment. Ballsy, she said finally. You want to push forward with the next step? Yes, I said. Serve him too. First thing Monday morning. And contact his wife. She deserves to know. You sure? Absolutely. She didn't argue. Just said she'd get started. I hung up and leaned back against the headboard. The room smelled like carpet cleaner and lavender, like it was trying to be something it wasn't. Kind of like the woman I used to love. I sat there until the sun dipped behind the buildings outside the window. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just felt steady, like a man who'd finally made it through the hardest part of the trail. The truth was out, and now it was time for consequences. I spent the next 3 nights at a short-term rental across town, using the quiet to organize every bit of what I'd collected. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was methodical, focused, clear. I had folders labeled by date. I had spreadsheets tracking payments. I had screen captures, call logs, calendar appointments. I had PDF exports of every invoice she submitted through her LLC. And I had a full written report from Ed, the private investigator, signed and notarized, detailing every trip she made to the hotel and every shady financial transaction between her and her boss. I didn't want to embarrass her. I wanted to expose her. I started with the IRS. I knew enough about small business audits to know they didn't care much about personal drama, but they cared deeply about undeclared income and false deductions. I packaged it all in a neat envelope. Inside, a copy of her invoice ledger, side by side with the shell company ownership records Ed had uncovered. I highlighted the payments that had been disguised as consulting fees and pointed out that none of the recipients were registered as legitimate vendors. The letter was typed and unsigned. The return address was an abandoned P.O. box I found listed in a closed business registry in Flagstaff, Arizona. I used gloves when handling everything. No fingerprints. No stray hairs. No mistakes. The next target was her company's ethics board. She'd always been proud of the firm she worked with on the side, mid-sized consultancy that boasted about integrity, transparency, and social responsibility. I tracked down the compliance officer's email and sent everything through a fresh burner account I set up at a public library computer 3 towns over. I labeled the subject, ongoing fraud, internal personnel involved. Inside the email, I explained, in plain terms, what they were dealing with. I even broke it into bullet points, easy for someone in HR to digest. Attached were 3 files: vendor analysis, PI report summary, and red flag transactions. Lastly, I mailed a printed copy of the whole package to the regional director of compliance for the parent firm her boss worked under. That man oversaw multiple offices across the state, and he had more to lose than anyone. I made sure the envelope looked professional. No handwritten notes. No threats. Just data. Cold and clean. And then, I waited. Didn't take long. Less than a week later, I saw it begin to unravel. Her LinkedIn, which she updated almost religiously, suddenly went quiet. I used a different account to check the profile. Her job title was gone. The company name replaced with independent consultant. That's code for out of work. The company website removed her photo from the leadership page. 2 days after that, Ed called me. "You might want to turn on the news," he said. I did. Local business paper had run a short article about a staff shakeup at her firm. Nothing detailed, but it mentioned a formal audit was underway due to irregular billing practices. One senior executive was relieved of duty. That was him. Her boss. Gone. Her unpaid suspension pending investigation. I could imagine the silence in that office, the sideways glances, the cautious whispers in break rooms. Small companies are like fishbowls. Nothing stays hidden for long, especially when clients get spooked. By the end of the week, 3 of her firm's biggest clients had suspended partnerships. I found that in a follow-up report. No one named names, but I didn't need them to. I already knew. She never said a word to me. I assume her lawyer told her not to. Or maybe she finally figured out she was playing chess with someone who'd already seen the whole board. I didn't brag, didn't post, didn't gloat. Everything I did left no trail. The email account was deleted the same hour I used it. The files were uploaded through a secure server routed through a country with no data sharing agreement. The package I mailed had no signature, no DNA, no camera footage of me walking in or out. Just paper. Just truth. And that truth did what I couldn't. It spoke louder than any confrontation. It cut deeper than any insult. And best of all, it left me clean. No shouting match. No regret. Just quiet justice. Like I said, I believe in doing things clean. And this was clean. It was a Thursday afternoon, about 2 weeks after the hotel. Most of the dust had settled, at least on my end. I'd signed off on a few more legal documents, sat through 2 meetings with my lawyer, and reorganized the last of my files. I was sleeping better, eating regular again. It felt like the weight had shifted, no longer pressing down on me, but sitting behind me like a closed door I'd locked for good. I wasn't expecting to see him. I'd stopped by a downtown lot to grab some documents from a secure client Dropbox. The place was mostly empty, just a concrete parking garage with that stale, city dust smell and the echo of your own footsteps. I was headed toward my truck when I spotted him, standing there, leaning against a black Audi, buttoned shirt tucked into tailored slacks, Bluetooth headset clipped to one ear, like he was still the boss of something, talking with his hands, pacing a little. It was him, the man from the hotel room. Her boss. He hadn't seen me yet, but I saw the smirk first. That half-lazy look, the kind men wear when they think the world still belongs to them. He turned, saw me walking across the lot, and his eyebrows raised like he'd just run into an old pal at the hardware store. He clicked off his headset. "Hey," he said, loud enough to carry across the concrete. "Man, you took that pretty well." That was it. Just that one sentence. Not an apology. Not a hint of regret. Just smugness wrapped in khakis. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I kept walking. Quiet. Controlled. He must have seen something shift in my face because his grin faded right before I got to him. I didn't run. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just stepped in close and made a sudden movement. He didn't even try to duck. Didn't get a word out. He dropped like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. No drama. No flailing. Just flat on his side, like a plank falling off a truck bed. I looked down at him. He groaned once, rolled halfway, then froze when he saw me kneel beside him. But I wasn't done. I turned, walked to my truck, opened the glove box and pulled out a multi-tool, one I keep in there for work. It's not flashy. It's not for show. It's the same tool I use to cut wire, pry loose fuses, or handle a strip bolt when I'm in the field. I walked back to his car. A black Audi with that fresh wax look. New tires. Shiny rims. Overcompensating, like most things in his life. I crouched beside the driver's side wheel, pulled off the valve cap and twisted out the core. Air hissed out in a soft whisper. I did it slow, so he could hear it. I moved on to the next, then the last. All four. Completely flat. But no damage. No knife. No cuts. Just good old-fashioned deflation. He was still on the ground, propped up on one elbow now, rubbing his jaw like he wasn't sure if it was broken. I walked over, crouched beside him, close enough for him to see the scuff on my boot, smell the steel on my fingers. Next time, I said, voice low, I won't stop at the tires. His eyes widened. He didn't say a word. Then I stood and walked back to my truck. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for applause. Just drove off, steady and calm, like I dropped off a package and was heading to the next stop. I expected a call, maybe a visit, some lawyer to show up with a clipboard and a warning. Nothing came. Not that day. Not the next. A week later, Ed, the PI, sent me a message through our secure line. Said the guy was telling people he'd slipped on an oil spot and hit his jaw on the pavement. No mention of me. No charges. No police. I wasn't surprised. Cowards rarely press charges, especially the kind that smile with scotch in their hand while standing in your place. It wasn't about justice anymore. That had already been delivered. This was about balance. About putting one final punctuation mark on a story that should have never been written in the first place. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel ashamed, either. Some things can't be fixed with papers. Some things call for a different kind of closure. And that day, in that parking garage, I got mine. The divorce was finalized in 48 days. That's quicker than most people believe. But when you come prepared, with documentation, clean financial records, and a legal team that doesn't blink, it moves fast. Like pulling a rotten tooth when you've already iced the gum. Jenna didn't see it coming. Not really. Not the full weight of it. She thought it would be drawn out. Thought I'd flinch. That I'd hesitate or stall or, God help me, try to patch things up. She figured we'd meet in some mediator's office, sip bottled water, and talk about healing. She miscalculated. She tried everything. First, it was confusion. I didn't know what I wanted. Then regret. It just happened so fast. Next came the big promises, therapy, friendship, a fresh start. She even suggested we sell the house, move somewhere new, leave the past behind us. I didn't respond to most of it. My lawyer handled everything by the book. The court didn't care about her feelings. Judges see a lot of people cry. They don't hand out do-overs for sentiment. All that mattered was the paper trail, and thanks to the forensic work I'd done ahead of time, that trail painted a clear picture. I kept the house. Not because I was attached to it, but because I'd paid for most of it, and it was mine long before she'd ever moved in. I kept the retirement accounts too. The judge cited the disproportionate contribution of income and assets over time, which is a long-winded way of saying, I did the work, I keep the rewards. The pension? Intact. She fought for it. Brought it up 3 times. Claimed she supported me through the hard years. I guess by support she meant deflecting questions, draining bank accounts, and spending Thursday afternoons with her boss at the Marlowe Suites. The judge disagreed with her view of support. And the dog? That one got personal. His name's Hank. Old rescue mutt with a busted ear and a tail that thumps like a hammer when he's happy. He'd started growling at Jenna a few months before all this. Nothing major, just a low warning rumble when she got too close. I thought he was just being moody. Turns out, he was the only one in the house who saw the truth before I did. She didn't fight for Hank. Not hard, anyway. Claimed she was too busy for a pet right now. That was fine by me. Hank and I stuck together. She walked away with her leased SUV, a few thousand in personal savings, and a pile of legal bills that made her flinch when she read the numbers. Her consulting firm shut down 3 weeks after the investigation began. Nobody officially said it was because of the fraud, but her name disappeared from the business registry quietly. No statement. No farewell post. Just gone. Then came the calls. Or rather, the ones that didn't come. She applied for jobs out of state, marketing roles, remote positions, even junior consulting gigs. Her resume used to get replies within a day. Now? Silence. Blacklisted. That's the thing about her industry. People talk. And when someone like me packages the truth in a clean, documented envelope and delivers it to the right offices, that truth spreads faster than any rumor. A friend of hers, someone we both knew through one of my old clients, said Jenna was shocked by how cold the job market had become. Said she felt like a ghost in her own field. No callbacks. No interviews. Just doors that used to be open, now quietly locked. Word travels fast when you torch your own bridge. I kept things quiet. Never posted anything online. Never talked to anyone I didn't trust. I wasn't interested in revenge porn or public humiliation. I didn't want a crowd. I just wanted her out of my life, and I wanted the truth to follow her. People say closure comes from forgiveness. Maybe they're right. Maybe for some. For me, closure came in the form of silence. In bank accounts that balanced again. In an empty closet that didn't carry her perfume anymore. In Hank sleeping at the foot of the bed like he used to before everything fell apart. I didn't celebrate when the paperwork came through. Just signed it, filed it away, and poured myself a coffee. Sat on the porch. Listened to the birds. She burned her career. She lost the life she built off my back. She traded stability for short-term fun and got left with nothing but the memory of it. And me? I kept what mattered. My peace. My name. My dog. And not once did I look back. The boss's wife did not hesitate. Word got to her fast, faster than I expected, honestly. I had my lawyer send the documents to her personal address. Nothing dramatic. No letter. Just the facts. Copies of the emails, the PI's report, a timeline. Neatly bound. Truth doesn't need footnotes. She filed for divorce the very next day. Didn't yell. Didn't beg. Just walked into her attorney's office at 9 a.m. and got the ball rolling. A friend of mine in legal circles said she looked calm. Focused. Like someone who'd been living on the edge of suspicion for a while, just waiting for something real. She cleaned him out. Got the house, the retirement accounts, even the boat. Didn't fight fair, didn't have to. His misconduct gave her everything she needed. Adultery. Fraud. Corporate liability. By the time the firm's audit wrapped up, he was unemployed, publicly disgraced, and living in a rented condo near the airport. I heard she changed the locks before the ink dried. Froze the joint accounts, sold his watch collection, and scrubbed his last name off every document she could find. No second chances. She burned the bridge behind her and made sure he was still standing on it. You never really expect something to go federal. At least, not if you're just a guy with a 9-to-5 and a good dog. But that's the thing about truth, it's got reach. You set it loose in the right direction, and it doesn't just stop at your front door. It keeps moving, keeps climbing, until it lands on someone's desk with real authority. The IRS opened a case. Quietly at first. That's how they work. They don't shout about what they're doing. They observe. Collect. Wait. They probably flagged those invoices even before the envelope I sent hit their mailbox. Mine just added context. A push over the edge. When I found out it had gone federal, it wasn't from a knock on my door or a headline. It came from Ed, the private investigator. He called me from a burner line he uses when things get big. All he said was, "They're digging deep now. She's not going to wiggle out of this." I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. The ball was rolling. The charges started stacking. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Business conspiracy. I read the list once in a court summary I got hold of through a contact. Her name wasn't the only one on it. Her boss, Mr. Bluetooth and Scotch, was listed too, front and center. But something happened I didn't expect, not really. He flipped. When the heat got turned up, he did what a lot of cornered men do. He started talking. Probably to save himself. Maybe to cut a deal. Maybe because he thought he could walk away clean if he served her up on a platter. Didn't matter to me. His testimony included emails. Dozens of them. Forwarded straight to the federal office building with all the timestamps and attachments. Emails where she discussed alternative billing methods and non-reportable vendor relationships. One of them had her writing, "Let's keep this under the radar," like usual. That one, I heard, got read out loud in a deposition. The kind where people take notes and look down at the table because they know what's coming next. She took a deal in the end. Avoided prison. Got probation, restitution, and a permanent record that would follow her everywhere. Her business license? Gone. Financial privileges? Restricted. No more consulting, no more business management, no more anything in her old world. She moved. Out of state. Tried changing her name on social media accounts, started following some motivational speakers, posted vague quotes about new beginnings and healing from betrayal. Never said what really happened. Never admitted the part she played. But people knew. The internet remembers more than it forgets. And those people she once called colleagues? They don't forget either. I heard she applied to a mid-size agency in Portland. Didn't even get a call back. Applied for a speaking engagement in Denver. The organizer pulled her application before it even went to the board. Word travels. And so does paperwork. As for me, I left. Not just the house. Not just the city. Everything. New town, new job, new paperwork. I updated every file. Closed out old accounts. Switched phone numbers. Rerouted mail. I'm not hiding. I just removed myself. Scrubbed clean. My driver's license has a new address in a state she's never been to. My bills go to a P.O. box in a town so small you have to pump your gas first and pay inside. It's quiet here. Folks keep to themselves. I like that. My sister tells me Jenna still tries to call. Not often, but every few weeks. A message. A number that changes. Some just checking in nonsense, like she still deserves to know what's going on with me. I told my sister not to answer. Not out of spite, but because there's nothing left to say. I don't carry bitterness. That's her job now. The way I see it, she made her choices. I just made sure they mattered. I don't talk about her. Not here. The people I work with don't know her name. The guy who fixes my car doesn't know I was ever married. The folks at the diner know me by my first name and my coffee order, black, 2 sugars, no questions. Sometimes I sit on my back porch at night, boots up on the rail, coffee in hand, Hank curled at my feet. I listen to the bugs chirping in the trees and the faint hum of someone's tractor in the next field over. It's not a big life, but it's mine. Clean. Untangled. And you know what? Sometimes, silence really is the revenge. You don't have to shout to win. You just walk away quiet and let the truth do the talking. I sleep easy now. Like a rock. Share your thoughts in the comments. Should he have outed her publicly? Or was staying anonymous the smarter play? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.